Hello and welcome. You've tuned into our VoA Co Production. I am Hem Korsoro and let's begin. In a virtual event with frontline healthcare workers this week, US President-elect Joe Biden warned that his team is going to be behind by weeks or months in the country's pandemic planning unless the Trump administration stops blocking the transition process. White House correspondent Patsy Widawaskara has the story.
As the U.S. surpasses 11 million cases of COVID-19, President-elect Joe Biden slammed President Donald Trump, who refuses to concede that he lost the election, denying Biden a smooth transition that would include sharing information about the pandemic.
There's a whole lot of things that we just don't have available to us, which unless it's made available soon, we're going to be behind by weeks or months being able to put together the whole initiative relating to the biggest promise we have with two drug companies coming along and finding 95% effectiveness, efficiency in the vaccines.
During a virtual event Wednesday, Biden heard testimonies from health workers on the front line of the battle against the pandemic.
I'm sorry, I'm so emotional.
No,
it's just...
You got me emotional.
Earlier this week, Biden warned that more Americans may die from the virus if the transition is further delayed. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is touting achievements in vaccines after U.S. pharmaceutical companies Moderna and Pfizer reported initial results showing their vaccines to be over 90% effective.
By the end of December, we expect to have about 40 million doses of these two vaccines available for distribution, pending FDA authorization, enough to vaccinate about 20 million of our most vulnerable Americans.
Despite encouraging vaccine news, Biden is facing an uphill battle when he is inaugurated in January.
I think the incoming administration is going to face a lot of challenges in terms of getting people to cooperate with best practices for public health while everyone is focused on exciting news about a new vaccine. In the best case scenario, it's going to be months and months before a vaccine is manufactured and distributed and administered to a critical mass of the population.
The Trump campaign continues to mount legal challenges in several states, including the latest demand of a partial recount in the state of Wisconsin, which Biden won. Patsy Widawaskara, VOA News.
And to speak about this further, we speak to Voice of America senior White House correspondent Patsy Widawaskara, who is at the White House right now. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you explain what is the tradition of political transitions in the United States and how is it different this time around with President Trump refusing to concede?
Well, traditionally in the American political system, once a candidate receives at least 270 electoral votes. This is again a reminder that U.S. elections are not won by the popular vote, but by the number of electors that each candidate wins based on the elections on each state. Once somebody exceeds that number of 270, usually the other candidate would give them a call and say, congratulations, we ran a good campaign and that kind of thing. And then that person, the loser, would have some sort of concession speech, and that will allow the winner to have a victory speech. And then the transition would happen where both teams from both campaigns, from the outgoing administration and the incoming administration, work together in terms of everything, right? Both the economy, intelligence, the new president-elect will receive intelligence briefings just to get him ready on the first day of inauguration so he can go up and running to run the country. And this smooth transition of power and also a peaceful transfer of power has been a mark of American democracy for generations. And so this is indeed unprecedented in a way that, the President Trump refuses to concede. However, I would remind you that also in the year 2000, there was this kind of long period of uncertainty when at that time Al Gore from the Democratic Party refused to concede to the election. Actually, he gave a concession speech and then retracted it, and it went through this long drawn-out battle all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the U.S. election was not decided until 36 days later. And now here we are, the same thing kind of happening with President Trump's campaign, launching all sorts of legal lawsuits, particularly in states, in key battleground states, including in Michigan, as I mentioned in my report, as well as Pennsylvania and a number of other states. So there's a lot of uncertainty that's going on right now.
All right. Also, ultimately, what is the goal of President Trump by refusing to concede and cooperate in a smooth transition? Can the American people still have a new president if Trump does not concede?
What is, your question was, you were...
So what I caught from your question was, what is the ultimate goal of President Trump? Well, based on the conversations that I've had with Republican strategists, as well as statements from the Trump campaign, right now their strategy in terms of legal strategy is that knowing that these legal challenges that they're mounting may not come to fruition in the way that they want, one of the things that they're considering is to kind of convince states not to certify the result of the election. And in fact, in some states where it's controlled by Republicans, having this idea of state electors change their votes, not based on popular vote and not vote for Joe Biden, but for President Trump. In fact, today the president is inviting two state legislators from the state of Michigan to the White House, as has been reported, and we don't know what may come from that. But based on the conversations that I've had with legal analysts, they say that if this does indeed happen, number one, it will be completely unprecedented and it would amount to a coup. And also, it would seem very unlikely to happen. But as we know, there's so many things that have been very unusual and irregular in terms of this U.S. election in the 2020. So we'll have to see what happens. A couple of dates to look forward to is that by mid-December, that is the time when state electors have to formally cast their votes to be the for the next president and vice president of the United States. And by December 8th, all these legal challenges will have to be resolved. So even though under the U.S. Constitution, there is no mandate that says the loser will have to concede before the winner can be declared the winner, but the states do have to certify the results of the election. And that is what we're looking forward to in mid-December.
All right, Patsy, thank you so much for all those details.